Okay, hi everyone. I'm going to share the screen with you. Actually, I'm not sure if I have it ready to share, but I will share it while I'm looking for it. So this week's topic is going to be the Queen of Sheba, and we will look at quite a few pictures. And her importance is actually less important to us, more important, I think, to uh, Ethiopians. So let me share the screen with you. So, okay. So this is a typical picture that you see in front of you with the Queen of Sheba being brought to, of course, going to visit Solomon. I mean, that's how we know her. And there are a lot of associations with the Sheba, which is the lion here that you see. And, you have the whole group of soldiers accompanying her. It's a royal visit, right? It's a royal visit that we have here. And here's a picture from Strasbourg. It says the Museum of Works of Notre Dame in Strasbourg, King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba around 1270, okay, 1270. And so I don't know why there's this line here, but there is a line here. I have no idea what it's doing there. Anyway, you could see here is the Queen of Sheba, and here's the king, and she's coming bearing, she's coming and she's bearing gifts, okay? So here's, and here's another picture of the Queen of Sheba. Now this picture is really very interesting because the woman here, the black, I mean, the Queen of Sheba is depicted as black, of course, and here she does not so much look to be like an Ethiopian woman, but it's very, very interesting picture here. Also, this is the Speculum Humana, Mirror of Human Salvation, 1430. It was a best-selling anonymous illustrated work of popular theology. In other words, so it basically saw events of our Bible prefiguring the New Testament, okay? What exactly is prefiguring here, I'm not sure, but presumably, wait, where is this line coming from? I'm going to stop the share because it seems to be on all of my pictures right now. And now I'll share again. Okay, hopefully that will disappear. Yes, it's disappeared. Okay. Here's another picture. And here, the Queen of Sheba is not black. So that's interesting in itself too. It's a 15th century miniature, all right? And so, and you can see that this is more very, very European looking and very interesting why she's not depicted as black. Okay. And one last picture before we move on. And so here we have on the doors of, in Florence, called these Gates of Paradise. I don't know, maybe some of you may have seen this when you visited there. And anyway, these are bronze doors. And again, you have here the king, who looks much, much older, by the way. Notice looks much older than the Queen of Sheba. This is Lorenzo Ghiberti. And you have here her people on this side. Notice they seem to be bearing gifts, or they're holding her veil, but they're also bearing gifts. And on his side, you have the Israelites. It's very interesting. This is an official visit. The point being made here is it's a big deal because it was an official visit. And what's really interesting is that you have this chapter here, which refers to some of the gold that she may have brought, that may have existed in the temple, and some references here to strange things. All right. So in Isaiah chapter 2, you have here that in future days, the Lord's house will be at the top of the mountains. It will be firm founded, and people from all over the world, right? All the nations shall flow to it, and many people shall go and say, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of Jacob's God, that he may teach us of his ways, right? In other words, so Jerusalem and where Solomon is abiding is a source of spiritual things and teaching, and from, we say in Hebrew today, Ki mi Tzion tetzei Torah, right? For from Zion shall teaching come forth, and the Lord's word from Jerusalem, Ki mi Tzion tetzei Torah, udvar Adonai mi Yerushalayim, right? We sing that all the time. It's very famous, right? And that he shall judge among the nations. In other words, the idea of Solomon as being a peacekeeper, a judge, and it's very, very interesting that you have here hints about the role of Jerusalem. And you also have in the same chapter, in chapter 2, you also have, they are full of Eastern things and soothsayers like the Philistines. They abound in children of strangers, and his land is filled with silver and gold, and no end to his treasures. And his land is filled with houses, and no end to his chariots. And his land, this is not so nice, is filled with idols to his handiwork. He bows down to what his fingers make. In other words, Isaiah is hinting also at the problem that you have perhaps when you have such a wealthy place. But on the other hand, it's a place of influence and with vision and a source, a central source. Okay, so now we come to the text where Sheba comes. Okay, this is now what's very interesting is almost everything goes downhill for Solomon after this chapter, from chapter 11 or 12. If you look at the book of Kings 1, you'll see that things go down the drain. That's when he starts marrying all these women and all sorts of things, all right? It's not clear if 10 falls into that category, because here he's clearly at his height in terms of fame and popularity and a wonderful king. But then afterwards, things go downhill. It's very, very interesting. You have something similar, by the way, also in chapter 11 in Samuel, with things go downhill for David after what goes on with Bathsheba. And then afterwards, he starts having trouble with his family and everything else. Chapter 11 seems to be a very problematic chapter in both of these books. Okay, but we won't go into that right now. Sue, you want to read this? Should I change the red to an easier color, or you could read it?
The red is fine.
Okay.
And the queen of Sheba heard the rumor of Solomon for the name of the Lord, and she came to try him with riddles. And she came to Jerusalem with a great retinue, camels bearing a great abundance of spices and gold and precious stones. And she came to Solomon and spoke to him all that was in her heart. And Solomon told her all her questions. There was no question hidden from the king that he did not tell her. And the queen of Sheba saw all Solomon's wisdom, and the house that he had built, and the food on his table, and the seat of his servants, and the standing of his attendants, and their garments, and his cupbearers, and the burnt offering he would offer up in the house of the Lord. And she was breathless.
Okay, stop here right now. What is she most impressed by?
His wisdom.
Okay,
The
wisdom
abundance,
goes,
the
right?
abundance of all his things.
Okay, first it's wisdom, then
Right.
it's the house, then it's the food, then it's the garments and the cupbearers, and then the worship, right, that he would offer to God, right? In other words, there's a lot of things here, right? She too comes with many gifts, right? Spices, gold, precious stones, right? Also, she speaks to him whatever that means, all that was in her heart. Does that mean he's like her psychiatrist? I mean, we don't know exactly what that means, but they have, some sort of an intimate, I don't mean intimate in the sense of sex, but an intimate relationship where, if you want, of equals, right? She's equal to him. She's a queen. She's a ruler. She reigns. He reigns. And she's very impressed. In fact, she may even have a higher status than him. I mean, maybe, Israel is an upstart nation. So it's quite possible that her status is even higher. So, but whatever it is, she is breathless, whatever that means. Okay, go on.
And she said to the king, "The word that I heard in my land about your doings and about your wisdom is true. And I did not believe these words until I came and my own eyes saw. And look, the half of it was not told me. You exceed in wisdom and bounty beyond the rumor that I heard. Happy are your men, happy your servants, those who stand in your presence perpetually, listening to your wisdom. May the Lord your God be blessed, who has desired you to set you on the throne of Israel through the Lord's love of Israel forever, and has made you king to do judgment and justice."
Okay, stop there. So, okay, she talks about the bounty, right? Which would be physical, but the wisdom, again, the wisdom. And it's very interesting. Where is she getting this ashrei? I assume happy are your men. Everyone's happy, right? Doesn't that sound to you a little bit suspicious?
Seems like over the top flattery.
Right. It's
buttering him up.
It's like buttering him up, right? Because the idea of his being happy, everyone's happy. And by the way, when I saw the word perpetually, what my association with listening to wisdom perpetually would be, oh my gosh, here he goes again. How many times can we hear his wisdom? But the whole idea here is, and she seems to be impressed with his relationship with God. Okay, and the question is she a believer in that same God? Does she have her own God? It's very interesting because she doesn't say. Well, she does say your God. Yes, she does say your God. She doesn't say okay. Okay, go on. And we know that she brought a lot of stuff with her, right? But but we don't. She hasn't given it to him yet. Okay.
And she gave the king 120 talents of gold and a very great abundance of spices and precious stones. Never again did such an abundance of spice come as the Queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. And Hiram's fleet as well that bore gold from Ophir brought from Ophir a great abundance of sandalwood and precious stones. And the king made from the sandalwood beads for the house of the Lord, and the house of the king, and lutes and lyres for the singers. The like of the sandalwood has not come, nor been seen to this day. And King Solomon gave to the Queen of Sheba all she desired, for which she had asked, besides what Solomon had given her in royal bounty. And she turned and went off to her land, she and her servants.
Okay, what do you think? If you notice, I put in bold, she was breathless, all right? And I also put in bold, and King Solomon gave to the Queen of Sheba all she desired, for which I'll put this in green so it looks a little bit easier to see. What do you think he gave to her?
Well, the question is, what did she ask for?
Right.
What was the purpose of her trip other than curiosity to see if the rumors were true?
Okay. So what do you think she asked for, and what do you think he gave to her?
Usually kings and queens engage in politics and alliances and protection for each other. So maybe something was underlying this other than riddles and curiosity. And, there has to be a quid pro quo for something. She gives him 120 talents of gold because his men are happy. No, that can't be. So there has to be something underlying.
Okay.
Well, I mean, the text also hints that if she, it says for which she asked. So she must have come with a request
Right.
and not just to come for the flattery. But so, yeah, I agree with Norman there that, and
So
it is a
why
mystery.
don't you think a little bit out of the box, even daringly out of the box? All she desired.
What is the Hebrew there? I don't remember.
That's a good question. Let me, do I have a quick Tanakh that we're talking about 1 Kings 10? Let's see. 1 King, I don't have my phone in front of me. It would be much quicker with a phone, but okay, 1 Kings 10. What verse is this? Towards the end, right?
Yeah, it's probably either 12 or 13.
12.
1 Kings, from 1 to 13. Okay. By the way, right after that is, as I told you in 11, is he loves foreign women. Okay. 13. Et kol chefza asher sha'ala. Et kol chefza asher sha'ala. Right? Milvad asher natan la. Besides what he gave her. Kiyad hamelech. Right? Like the hand of the king. All right. And then it says, and then she went off to her land. She turned around. Okay. If you were writing a midrash about this, what would you do with this? Especially since after this chapter, right, we have a tremendous amount of description about all the stuff, lots and lots of stuff that he's doing. And it even says in verse 23, Vayigdal HaMelech Shlomo mikol malchei haaretz la'osher u'lechachma. He became greater and greater than every other king of the land. For Osher with an ayin. Osher with an ayin is what?
Wealth.
Riches, wealth, right? Ulachachma, and for wealth. Okay, so you have here, and everyone wanted to listen to his wisdom, right? And then you also have here, he also had lots and lots of horses, and many horses, which also, those of you who may have read my blog this week, I talk a little bit about horses. Horses is really, when a king of Israel has horses, it's very problematic, right?
Yeah, they're warned that before they ask for a king that he's going to want horses.
Right. And in Deuteronomy, it's that's this week's parasha, and it's in the book of Samuel. And here too, you have here in that he had lots and lots of horses. All right. And how does when kings get horses? How do they get those horses? They're not sheep.
From Egypt. That was the thing in Shoftim.
How do they get them? I don't mean money. Yeah, you have to pay for them. And where does the money come from?
Taxes from the people.
Taxes of the people, exactly. Okay. All right. And then, as I told you afterwards, immediately afterwards in chapter 11, the king loved foreign women. Okay. And there's a whole list of them. Okay. So, keeping all of that in mind, the context here, what do you think she asked for?
A child.
Yes.
Yes, a physical alliance.
A physical alliance, right. Norman, you talked about a political alliance. What could be more
That's part of the political alliance. How did Queen Victoria have, or whoever the hell it was, have control of all of Europe?
Exactly.
All of her kids sat on different thrones.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's part of political alliance.
Exactly.
It's not love.
Exactly.
And why does Queen Camilla want her son to be all the mishigas about that?
Right. Oh, is that what it is?
You know some gossip that I don't know.
She's not going to get that.
Okay, so now we come to very interesting. We come now to the, if you want, the Ethiopian Midrashim. And in the Ethiopian Midrashim, who is the offspring of this meeting between Sheba and, right? So you have here here are the very interesting depictions here. They're not necessarily Ethiopian, but you have here very interesting. This is also from the Speculum Humani Salvations. You have, notice you have her on the bottom, right? In homage, so to speak. And here's the king. And here are all of the people who are bringing gifts to the king. Right? They look like what do you call those things when the money bags? They look like money bags.
Right.
Okay. And again, you have notice it's interesting that she's white here in both of those pictures. But you have here all these people again with the gifts and her retinue and everything.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear me? Does anyone else not hear me?
No, we can hear you. Yep.
Oh, okay.
So it might be you, Norman, who have the problem.
Yep.
Okay. So let's look at the text here. All right. That painting, right, that we saw is actually going to be this painting here. Okay. Take a look at it, and then we'll come back to it. All right. Marcia, would you like to read the painting?
Oh, the painting illustrates scenes from the story of King Solomon and Queen Sheba. Isn't it of Sheba? Okay. The first register of cartoons shows how Ethiopia was terrorized by a serpent called Wenaba, who had to be appeased with a sacrifice every time the people wanted to collect water.
Yikes.
One man, Ngabo, was determined to free Ethiopia from the servants' tyranny. He collected poison, which he mixed with grain and fed to the sacrificial goat, poisoning the serpent. Ngabo killed the serpent and was proclaimed King of Ethiopia. After his death, his daughter Sheba, or Makeda, as she is known in Ethiopia, was crowned queen.
Okay, so let's look at that. All right. So here we have the snake.
Starting from here.
Here we have the snake, and this is what you just read.
Feeding the serpent.
Okay.
It looks like Adam and Eve clothed over here, right?
To a certain degree.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the goat. All right. The sacrificial goat, I guess.
Yes.
And being with poison. And then here you have him being made the king.
Yeah.
And then I guess this is when he dies. And then when he dies, here I guess is Sheba, who now becomes the queen, I guess.
It doesn't look like they have a crowning or anything.
Maybe it's in the second one. Okay, let's go back to the second register.
Here.
Okay. The second register.
The second register shows the coronation of Makeda and how the queen's chief merchant, Tamrid, received news that King Solomon sought sapphires and gold for the building of the temple at Jerusalem. The news is represented as a letter held in a forked stick. Sounds like
I can move back.
The Lone Ranger rides again.
Okay.
Sounds like the forked tongue of the snake.
Yeah.
Okay.
Forked stick. Or man speaks with forked tongue.
Okay. All right, let's go back.
Where?
Forked stick. Tamrid.
Tamrid was sent by the queen to fulfill Solomon's request, and when he returned to Ethiopia, his tales of the great temple and the wisdom of King Solomon convinced Sheba to travel to Jerusalem to see this great king herself. When she arrived in Jerusalem, she was received with great ceremony by Solomon. On the night before she returned to Ethiopia, Solomon held a great banquet in her honor. He asked that she sleep in the king's quarters that night, but afraid the king might try to seduce her, she begged him to swear by God not to touch her. Solomon answered, saying, I swear unto thee that I will not take thee by force, but thou must swear unto me that thou wilt not take by force anything that is in my house. The queen readily agreed. After the spiced food of the banquet, Sheba awoke in the night very thirsty, and reaching for some water, she was seized by Solomon. Shocked, she asked, "Is the oath broken by my drinking water?" Solomon replied, "Is there anything thou hast seen under the heavens that is better than water?" The queen agreed, and Solomon was freed from his oath. Queen Sheba returned to Ethiopia carrying Solomon's child. At their parting, Solomon gave the queen a ring containing his royal seal.
Okay, all right.
Uh-huh. Oh,
So here
this
we
is a
have.
hot midrash here.
So this is the depiction of all of that. Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay.
And here you can see the two of them, I guess, sleeping together.
Uh-huh. They
And
don't exactly say that.
whatever, but you know, the pictures, you know.
Well, it does
pictures-
say she went back carrying his child, so.
Yeah, yeah. Well, sometimes it happens, just happens.
She's not the Virgin Mary. Let's put it
No,
that way.
no. No, we don't know.
All right, so this is basically the story. All right, and then you have a child. You know, his name is. He goes to seek his father.
Baina Lechem.
Right.
The child's
Baina
name.
Lechem. Yeah. All right. And Solomon immediately recognizes his son. Okay, go on. And undertook.
Oh. And undertook to teach him the word of God and the art of kingship. After a time, Baina Lechem asked to return home. Solomon tried to convince him to stay and become heir to the throne of Israel, but Baina Lechem insisted on returning to Ethiopia. Solomon pledged to send with him the firstborn sons of his court to establish the word of God in Ethiopia. What happened to the fourth register?
I don't know. I don't know if we have the whole thing here.
Well, it goes from 3 to 5.
No, you have them in different. You know, there are different versions of this.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
There are different versions. So here it's actually, it says here, maybe this is a better one here. Okay, but it's not so easy to follow. But we don't have to follow it exactly.
No,
but
we don't.
Certainly get the idea. Okay, wait, let's go finish the story.
Okay, where are we? The word of God in Ethiopia. The fifth register shows how Baina Lechem begged Solomon for a fringe from the Ark of the Covenant. Along with the firstborn sons of Jerusalem, Baina Lechem spirited away the Ark of the Covenant from the Temple of Jerusalem. The Kebra Negast, I guess that's the name of the Midrash, tells of the miraculous journey back to Ethiopia, and how, by the power of God and the ark, Baina Lechem and the firstborn sons flew over the ground, destroying the idols of Egypt. When he reached Ethiopia, his mother, Queen Sheba, crowned him emperor of Ethiopia, naming him Menelik I. He was the first Ethiopian emperor who claimed direct descent from King Solomon, the beginning of a long line of holy Solomonic kings.
Okay, so now this also brings together a lot of things that we know, why Ethiopians, why we brought Ethiopians to Israel. And according to this, they have legitimate reasons for this. So really very, very interesting. And as I said, here's another one. Notice here's the Judah, right? The lion is usually the
Lion of Judah.
It's the Lion of Judah.
Haile Selassie.
Because don't forget, David was from Judah, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Solomon would be from Judah too, right? So that's
right.
Okay. And here we have.
Here's a lion. Oh, cool. Oh, this is nice.
Here we have Solomon. This is from. Now, what you have is a lot of modern art. So this is 20th century. This is the Ethiopian school, all right? And you have here the picture of them exchanging gifts, all right? Notice that King Solomon here notice his color.
Everybody is brown except for the lion.
Right, except for the lion, right? So that also is interesting. Okay. And here you have another one. This is an unknown Ethiopian artist, but he has black people on this side, but he turns her into a white person. So the whole idea of color doesn't seem to be that important, which is interesting in itself. And this is, if you're in Jerusalem, you can actually go and see this particular picture in the Church of the Holy
pretty.
Sepulchre. Right, I'll show you where it's standing here. Right, this is where it is. Right, this is where that picture is. And if you like the art, you could actually buy this. You could 275 shekels. You could buy yourself a 20-piece. I don't know.
Oh, dinner set. Oh, that's nice.
I don't know if that's true today or not, but as of last
Gloss
year,
finish.
yeah. So okay, so you have here.
Wait, and that, wait, they have the name of the artist? Oh, that's the
What?
painting. No.
Okay,
It was for,
here's
yeah.
another painting. And people are, you know, it's very touristy, and people are doing these things. And this is in the Gallery of International Native Art, GINA,
yeah.
right, of International. Okay.
It's in Jerusalem, or it was.
Yeah. So now you have here an interesting idea here, because again, keep in mind that this reading is, I would say, crucial. But we'll go back to the Ethiopian understanding of it, but also in terms of our Bible, it's exactly right. I'm glad someone told me to open up a Bible. It's exactly midway. How many chapters are there? Not exactly midway, but pretty close to midway. There are 22. No, it is actually midway. There are 22 chapters in Malachim Aleph. Yeah. Okay. It's midway in the story. It's midway in Kings 1 Kings. And right after that, Solomon loves many, many people, and that's when he starts having problems and with his sons, and it even says that a devil came to Solomon. In other words, they're trying to ascribe his downfall to a devil coming to him. In other words, so she's exactly in the middle, right? Now, I don't know if anyone has really looked at it that way, but I'm suggesting that it's where there's more than meets the eye here. Is someone implying that this is the beginning of the downfall of the united house of Israel?
Yeah.
It could be, okay? Anyway, it says here, it's not clear. This is Alice Bellis who's writing, and it said gender-sensitive reading, all right? She says the historicity of the meeting is not ensured. However, it's not clearly a fictional account. So in other words, in many of the retellings, there are fictional elements that are woven in, but this whole idea of there having a meeting, it entered all sorts of stories, right? And in the Septuagint, happy are your men becomes happy are your wives.
Oh.
Suggesting that Sheba finds Solomon attractive in ways that go beyond admiration of wisdom and wealth.
Well, it's bringing in new blood,
Right.
And imagine if we had, that's a lot of territory.
Yeah, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, you have here, there's this sort of, in the Aramaic commentary on the book of Esther, right? You have a hoopoe bird. This has to do with the riddles. A hoopoe bird summons Sheba and compels her to travel. And once she has arrived and entered the king's apartment, she mistakes, this is almost pornography, she mistakes the polished floor for a pool of water. She raises her skirt.
Oh.
to avoid damaging her clothes, and thus reveals that her legs are hairy. Solomon remarks that though she is beautiful, the hair on her legs is shameful. Hairy legs are appropriate only for men. She ignores his remarks and proceeds to ask a series of riddles. All right. And then the commentary here is that the version of the story is similar to the view that Sheba is a demonic temptress like Lilith. Okay. Now the plot thickens, because if she is a temptress like Lilith, according to certain versions here, then we can understand why chapter 11 is so important in terms of what will happen later on in chapter 12, the downfall. His love of women is going to be what brings him down. Okay, cherchez la femme. Okay. So Solomon in Pseudo Ben Sira's retelling of the story, Sheba is said to be hairy all over. Right? So Solomon, wishing to have sex with her but not liking the hair, sends her various depilatories to solve the problem. They sleep together, and from the union, now here is, notice, not the son that we saw before, but Nebuchadnezzar from Babylonia, who takes Jerusalem and destroys the temple. Okay, so this is really very, very problematic. And what is some of the problems? The problem is when women seek political and even sexual parity with men, they may well rescind the obligations of motherhood, if not motherhood. All right. So in other words, here the whole idea that women are not equal to men, and the Midrash has to sort of put them down. Here they're putting her down by, making her hairy, but also the idea that the Nebuchadnezzar is born, and this is, that her sin, or their sin, if you want to call it that, is what results in the temple being destroyed. So you
in a way that's parallel, because David wasn't allowed to build the temple because of his sin with Bathsheba. So
Right.
the fact that Solomon's similar sin, although he didn't kill somebody in order to have Sheba, would be the end of the temple. There's kind of a poetic justice there.
Right. Okay, so it must be my neighbor. I thought it's coming from my house. So you have here, in the Quran, right? You have the story, right, which is partially derived from the Jewish tradition. The message is different, right? In this account, Solomon is not only a wise king, but also a prophet of God. And he summons Sheba, who's a sun worshiper, to come and submit to the one true God, all right? Again, there's a hoopoe bird in there. The floor is paved with glass. But this time, when she lifts her skirts, Solomon does not say anything about her hairy legs, right? And Sheba declares that she has wronged herself and submits to Allah through Solomon. That's really fascinating. Okay. All right. And so anyway, so you have here Sheba, according to this, whose name is also Bilqis in this Muslim tradition, has a deformity hidden beneath her skirt. All right. And rumor has it that she has ass's hooves or nether parts, right? Or hairy legs. All right. Wait 1 second. You want to continue reading? 1 second.
What? Was it me? Still me?
Somebody read. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Where are we? Submits to Allah through Solomon.
Teaching, I'll call you later.
Just read the account of the meeting of
Okay,
Sheba and
apparently in pre-Quranic lore, Bilqis, as Sheba is called in Muslim tradition, suffered from a deformity hidden beneath her skirt. The poor woman. Rumor had it that she had ass's hooves or hideous nether parts, or in more genial versions, simply hairy legs. Well, that's why we invented razors. When Solomon tricked her into revealing her physical deformity, she realized that she was spiritually impaired as well. The imperfections of her soul were thus mirrored in those of her body. The Muslim storyteller Ibn al-Athir, who died in 1234, Common Era, elaborated on the tale and gave Bilquis a snake princess for a mother, which results in the lower part of her body being malformed. Sheba, not quite human in body or in soul, is therefore cured when she submits through Solomon to Allah.
Allah.
Uh-huh.
Then if we continue reading, we see that the metonymy
Metonymy.
of legs or feet for the genitals, right? And okay.
Uh-huh.
So, okay, fine.
Right.
So here we have the fact that her, in the Muslim world, all right, her otherness was a matter of gender, all right? And her female gender is sort of, it goes together with her paganness, but when she submits to Solomon, to Allah through Solomon, I guess everything turns out okay. Anyway, you have here a whole bunch of interesting stories, and the story of the National Saga, which we saw before with all those pictures that we saw here, is that she, when Tamrin comes back, she decides to see for herself, and she converses with him daily, and she decides to abandon her pagan worship and instead worship God, okay? And Solomon has been so impressed. Now this is interesting. Think about the story that we have in the Bible. In the Bible, what was the story? She asked him. But here, according to their version in the Ethiopian story, Solomon has been so impressed by her beauty and intelligence that he desires to beget a son by her. Okay? So that's really very interesting. All right? So, and then we have the story about drinking the
spice food.
Have that? All right?
Yeah.
And Menelik the first is born, and that night Solomon dreams that the sun has departed from Israel and would shine forever over Ethiopia.
Uh-huh. See?
Okay?
We're
And
missing this whole opportunity. Ethiopia's got a lot of green.
But again, keep in mind that it fits in with the where the placement of this story is. Remember where the placement is and what happens after chapter 11, where you have the downfall, right? And then we have here it goes up, Menelik goes up, he becomes curious in Jerusalem, and he is wearing the ring Solomon gave her, and everyone in Jerusalem marvels at his resemblance to Solomon, okay? He studies, like he goes to the Hebrew University, right? He studies the laws and institutions and returns home. And anyway, before they leave, they take the Ark of the Covenant with them, which is really interesting. That means the Ark of the Covenant now leaves Israel, leaves Jerusalem. That's really very interesting.
The Ethiopian Jews believe that the Ark is in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
So it's
really very, very interesting. All right. So again, as I mentioned earlier, the Queen of Sheba had this gender-sensitive reading, and so you have here. It's really very interesting. That's the whole idea is to make Solomon look good. All right. This story is to make him look good and why? Because she's wise and she's wealthy and she's the exotic person, and she comes to test Solomon, right? And he passes the test. So it shows that Solomon is so she has to be given power, right? She has to be a virtuous person. She cannot be a stupid, bimbo. So this is really very interesting. What's also interesting,
No, if he had stopped at Sheba, he would have been okay. There were only 900 something women left, right? But he was greedy.
Right. So now Claudia,
I always had problems with Solomon,
Oh, me too.
Yeah, the Tanakh itself has a problem with him.
Yes, yeah. That's why we enjoy being together in this class, right?
Claudia Camp, who's another Bible scholar who I I actually met her at some conferences years ago. She's one of the early feminist scholars, old school.
Mhm.
So she says that if she is wondering if Sheba is to be identified with the divine figure. Excuse me, Cram suggests that she is identified with the divine figure of woman wisdom, Chokhmah, right?
Mhm.
And if she's associated with Chokhmah, then Solomon does not beat her, right? She's the one with the high standard, and he has to rise to her heart, right? In other words, it's not a contestant. It's not a contest between two contestants, right? It's Solomon doesn't ask her questions. He
Yeah.
simply equals her in wisdom, right? And this is, again, this is Alice Ogden Bellin who's reading of this. So her understanding is after she realizes that Solomon can answer all her questions, and after she has observed all his wealth, there was no more breath, ruach, right? There was no more breath, ruach in her. In other words, she now has nothing more to say, no further need to question, right? So what we translated before that she was breathless, right, is that she no longer has any more questioning. She accepts them as he is. Okay. Does anyone want to comment on anything here? We have some time, and I also have here some interest. I don't know if we'll have time to read this, so maybe we'll skip it. But there's also these riddles, all right? The riddles, King Solomon and the bee, right? They show up here in the legends of the Jews, and it's a very famous, Shlomo HaMelech V'Hadvarah, King Solomon and the bee. And you have here, this is the some pictures here. Let's just look at how modern art sort of saw him, Solomon and the bee. So this is the famous riddle, right? What do you think the riddle is? If you don't know what the riddle is, what do you think the riddle is?
Oh, I don't remember. Sweet.
I mean, the bees on flowers, that's pollinating theory. I don't know.
What do you think the riddle is? Sheba brings two sets of, or she tells them about there are two sets of flowers. One is fake and the other is real. How can you tell the difference between fake flowers and real flowers, which look exactly the same? Let's even say there's perfume and they even smell the same, okay?
Wow.
How can you tell?
Oh, that's why the bee comes.
Yeah, he
That's
opens the
the bee.
window to let the bee in.
Exactly. All right. And then there's another one. Here the queen asks Solomon how to tell the boy from the girl in a look-alike. All right. How do you know that this is a boy and this is a girl? Okay. The real flower from an audition. All right. Solomon replies that the girl will catch the apple in the lap of her dress, and the bee will go only to the real flower. All right. So what you have here is the pictures of, here's the flower, right? Here's the flower. By the way, they both look like women, don't they? If you think about it. Solomon looks exactly like they could be twins, the two of them.
Yeah.
And here you have a girl and a boy, and how can you tell the difference? Because she will gather them in her lap, right? This is also, let's go here. Let's open up. I'm assuming we still can find it here. Let me just find this. Go out, stop share. See if we can find it. And if not, then we'll look at very quickly at something else that I have here. Oops. Okay, let's see what this is. Zoom meeting, share. Okay, let's see what we have here. Proverbs 31, oracle of a inspired mother. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so Sue, would you like to read this? Susan Ferris?
Okay. A little bit bigger, maybe? I don't know. Okay, I'll try. One warm sunny day, King Solomon was resting in the shade. That's great. In the shade of a fig tree in his garden. Two servants stood behind his chair, fanning him and chasing away all the flies and other insects. The king was just falling asleep when all of a sudden a little bee buzzed by. It managed to avoid the servants and their fans and landed right smack on the king's nose and stung him. King Solomon awoke and jumped up in pain. His nose started to swell and get as red as a beet. He looked all over for the little bee, but it had disappeared. He was so angry that he ordered all bees, flies, mosquitoes, and other insects to come together in his garden. You can imagine all the buzzing and humming that went on in the garden as all the insects gathered. Tiny insects were amazed that the great King Solomon wanted to see them, and they wondered why he had called them. The king stamped his foot and yelled, "Silence!" Quickly the garden became quiet. Not a thing stirred, not a buzz was heard. The king called out to the insects, "Which one of you insects dared to do such a wicked thing like this to the king?" And he pointed to his red, swollen nose. Suddenly, a little bee separated itself from the crowd and bravely flew up to the king, sat on his hand, and said, "I am the bee who stung you, King Solomon. I really didn't do it on purpose. I am still very young and cannot tell the difference between your nose and a flower. Please let me go, great king. Maybe one day I will be able to repay your kindness." The great king couldn't help laughing. "You tiny creature," he said to the bee, "how will you ever be able to help me? But I'll forgive you. Go on now, go back to your blossoms and flowers." Happily, the little bee took off, and the king returned to his palace. He put some special ointment on the nose that was prepared by the royal physician. Soon King Solomon's nose returned to its normal size, and before long he had forgotten all about the little bee. Several years later, an important visitor came to see the king. It was the Queen of Sheba, who had come to test King Solomon's wisdom and to ask him riddles. The queen ordered her servant girls to give the bunches of flowers she brought from her country to King Solomon. "I have heard so much about your wisdom, King Solomon," said the Queen of Sheba. "Please look at all these beautiful flowers. They are all artificial except one. Only one flower is real. Can you tell which one is the real flower?" King Solomon began to worry. All the flowers looked exactly alike. He could not tell the difference between them. As he wondered about which flower to choose, he heard a buzzing sound outside his window. He turned his head to see what was making that noise. When he saw what it was, he smiled and whispered to his servant to quickly open the window. Into the room flew the bee. No one except King Solomon saw her as she buzzed about and then came to rest on one of the flowers. King Solomon then said to the Queen of Sheba, "Of course I can tell the real flower from the artificial ones." He pointed to the flower on which the little bee sat. The Queen of Sheba and her servants were amazed at the king's wisdom. The little bee had returned the favor to the king. The king thought, "Today I have learned a valuable lesson. Never look down on anything. The smallest insect may help even a king." Pretty good.
You can buy the book. It's a children's book. It's available.
Wonderful.
Oh,
It's
very
a
sweet.
wonderful story.
Yeah.
This is really, it's really amazing how, I grew up on, maybe you remember Marcia. I don't know if we read
My
these
memory
stories.
is rapidly
No,
disappearing. Yeah.
No, but there were these books about
Legends of the Jews.
Evil Satan who got what his name was, Ashmedai.
Ashmedeus or something. Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah, Ashmedeus.
Yeah, there were all these legends about Ashmedai who somehow got into Solomon and turned him into a horrible person. Right?
Yeah.
Now, growing up, these are very scary books, by the way.
Yeah.
But they were also in Hebrew. We had to read them in Hebrew because they wanted us to, read interesting things in Hebrew. And it never occurred to me till recently that those books were probably to explain, those Midrashim were to explain what happened to Solomon. It turned him from this brilliant wisdom person who had all the gifts in the world, and God loved him, and just, as I said, through chapter 10, and then his downfall, and the whole house, immediately his children, they separated the kingdom right after him, right? You had Rehavam and Yerovam, and after, you had the split in the kingdom right after him. In other words, that was the end, He got an orderly dynasty from his father, David, and then he managed to ruin everything with all of his gifts. So it's really very interesting. We could actually Google this. I have something else here, but it's much too long, and also Linda's not here. Linda used to be part of our group, and so she had here a connection with Solomon's women, but she has her own version of a story here. Maybe next year, if I do this again, we'll read it. So let me just save this. And would anyone like to comment on what we read? I think we came across quite a few interesting ideas here.
Has nobody commented on it? When Sheba comes to Solomon, she says, everybody's happy, all your men. I mean, she doesn't mention women at all.
Well, no, but we saw that in the.
She could have said all your people.
Right, no, but the Septuagint changes it to women.
Men and women, I think.
I think the Septuagint changes it to women.
Just women?
Yeah, it said the wives.
Yeah.
It didn't even say all women, it just said his wives.
Wives are chattel, they're possessions, like an acre of land.
I think it's interesting that she says, don't disturb me tonight. And he says, I won't, as long as you don't take anything of mine. I think he already knows that he wants to plant a child in her, which he could consider.
Right.
But I think that's why she came, really.
Well,
I mean, he didn't have precious possessions. He had to take the wood from Tyre, from Hiram, and so she came for something that she didn't have.
But did he not have any other children with all those wives?
Well, we don't hear about a lot of them. I mean,
we don't hear.
I mean, first of all, I went to China to the secret kingdom or whatever it was, and there were all these rooms for all the wives of the emperor. It's impossible. There are only 365 days in the year. There were 1,000 women. How can you rule if you're busy with all your... And they weren't real wives. They were concubines. They were there as political pawns.
I think it's interesting that in this week's Parsha, it talks about kings should not have so many horses because they want to go back to Egypt and get more. And kings should not have too many wives because it's a distraction. Well, how many years is the difference between King Solomon and when Moses was saying that before they came into Israel?
Well, it's not only that. What's his name repeats it also. Samuel before he crowns first Saul and then afterwards David. But yeah, I just looked up Ashmedai in Hebrew. It's easier for me to say Ashmedai than it is to say Asmodeus, right? And you have here a picture of him, right? He's a devil, right? He's a devil, and he actually is the one who is the demon in the Legends of Solomon and the construction of the temple. All right, so it's very interesting that he seems to show up here. All right, and there are tales of him in the Apocrypha and also in the Testaments of Solomon. So in other words, it's not so much in our own It's not in our tradition. However, as I said, when we were children, we used to read these books in Hebrew. They were children's stories in Hebrew that we used to read them. And I remember being very scared by them as a child. Even though it's not in our tradition, it is in the Apocrypha. Yeah. He is in the Talmud. All right. He is in the Talmud. But in the Talmud, he's a good natured and humorous fellow. All right. But he also his desires turn on to Bathsheba and later to Solomon's wives. All right, in the Talmud. All right. And there's another legend which has Solomon tricking him into collaborating in the construction of the temple. In other words, you have all these stories which the rabbis knew, right? They knew, and some of them they depicted. Where you had this devil figure who is constantly back and forth between him, and it doesn't really have to do so much with the queen, right? But you even have him marrying Lilith, who became his queen. In other words, so you have the evil forces. You have the evil forces constantly against Solomon, and he's constantly back and forth with them. All right, and the angels have to protect Solomon from him. So you can look this up afterwards yourself. I just simply put it in. I'm looking at Wikipedia right now here. It's very, very interesting that you have. So the picture that we just saw before is Ashmedai with the breast of a man, a cock leg, serpent tail, 3 heads, right? One of a man spitting fire, one of a sheep, one of a bull, riding a lion with dragon wings and necks, right? All of these creatures being associated with either lascivity, lust, or revenge, okay? And the Archbishop of Paris approved the portrait. Let's go back to the portrait.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, actually, my master's thesis was called The Grotesque in English Literature. This would have been a great cover for the picture.
I can see why it scared you as a child.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So, okay, and anyway, Ashmedai appears in many, many places, all right, so we came across a lot of very interesting today. Anyone else want to add something? We're 4 minutes after 7.
I thought it was really nice. We obviously do Israel-centric readings of everything, but to have the alternate story as an Ethiopia-centric story, I thought was really fascinating. I wonder how many other parashot we could, or midrashim, we could use other cultures' interpretations of the same events and just look at them briefly. That would be pretty cool.
Good question.
Yeah.
And really I think it's really fascinating that you have this story and all the credit given to her. I mean, she really is a special person. But again, her placement, right? I keep on coming back to that, but I'm very.
Why there? What you mean? Why there in particular?
Why in that spot in the book, and then right afterwards we have the downfall. So I mean, clearly, whoever was editing the, we call the R. The R could be the rabbis or the redactor, right? The redactor of the Bible. By putting it in there, I think is making a statement, because that story, doesn't even have to be in the Bible. We don't even need to have it there. It doesn't really add anything to it. In fact, it's someone else is coming to test him, right? It actually sort of is like putting him down. He's sort of.
Well, how does anybody know how is it taught in Ethiopia? Not the Jews and. We don't know.
I imagine so. I mean, this is for them. This is the proof, right? The proof that there was a connection, and she came back with a baby. Right? She got all that she wanted, right?
Yeah, she did.
So it's like
Seems to be.
What?
Seems to be. Seems to be.
You can read it that way. In other words, it's a legitimate reading. That's why I asked you at the beginning, how could you read this? All right. Finally, someone's read it that way, you know. And that's the basis of a midrash. You could look at the Ethiopian story as a midrash if you want, right? From our perspective, it's a midrash. For them, that's a foundation story.
Mm-hmm.
Foundation story. Okay. Anything else?
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
yes.
you very
Thank
much.
you, Naomi. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Shabbos.
Thank you,
Shabbat shalom.
Naomi.
Yep.
Bye.
Have a good
Shalom.
week, everybody, and good Shabbos.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.